y'all. This is Tish, and this is the launch of my new podcast on YouTube. And it's still new. I'm trying to think of the title. It's called Quirks, Clues, and Coffee, where I will be focusing on cozy mysteries and talking to our authors, to our writers, anything that's cozy. So, to launch our new official podcast, we have Elizabeth Spann Craig. Let me get us some sound, Elizabeth. You know what? You always think you're prepared, but
Yay! Hi, everybody. Hey, Ted.
hey, it's good to have you here. And this is the book we're going to be talking about, y'all. So it is called The Type A Guide to Solving Murder by Elizabeth Spann Craig. So make sure you check the link in the description. Go to Elizabeth's website, sign up for her newsletter, and check out all her books. From what I counted this morning, you have at least over 60 books and you're still writing. That's a
Yes, it's a little
lot.
crazy.
So, Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am the mom of two. I always kind of start off with that, and the wife of one. So that's a little better that way. I have been writing pretty much my whole life. I think I realized when I was just kind of a kid, this was the thing that I needed to do. I'm not really good at anything else, and I'm not putting myself down. That's just the truth. I mean, I really do not have any other special talents besides perhaps organization. I can be organized and I can write, and that's pretty much it. So I tried to start out with journalism, and that just really wasn't doing it for me very much. It's just real factual, and I like to make things up, and that doesn't go on real well with journalism. So I ended up writing books. I think the first book came out in around like 2005, but that was like a small regional press, and then started getting with the bigger guys in like 2009. So I've been doing it for a little while. Yeah.
Well, you said you're not good at anything or a lot of things, but you are exceptional at writing. You really
Thank
are
you. You
wonderful
are too.
cozy mystery writer. Oh, boost my ego. So, yeah, this is a new series that you started. What inspired you to write about this character, a type A personality?
A type A personality. I think, well, I'm type A myself, but I'm not like Sam.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that I usually don't write at all about myself, and I don't think I did with Sam, but a lot of Sam's negative traits are also my negative traits. You can kind of ruminate
Ah.
on things and start being like, okay, has the trash come today? Where's the trash? The trash is running behind schedule. Just all the kind of things that a type A person would do. And in this particular case, I think I told you this the other day, this doesn't usually happen to me, but the ending for the book came before the whole idea of the rest of the book. And so I was like, okay. And I didn't write the book backwards, but I did maybe the last chapter first, which I don't, again, I
Wow.
never do that. And then I started at the beginning and went through that way. So that kind of was really the surprise ending. There's a bit of a surprise at the ending, and the character, and those two things together just kind of made it start off that way, kind of just generated the idea.
So when I looked at the fact that she's a type A person, immediately I thought about my mom. No
Oh,
offense to you, but
yeah.
I find type A people are very high strung too. Everything has a set
Yes.
order. There's lists, there's schedules. They
Yes. Yeah. Those are
perfectionists in a
all,
way. Oh my gosh!
yeah.
And you cannot tell them something that's not in black and white. Do you find that true with yourself?
I can find that true. I am not a perfectionist. That's the only thing. Like I clean the house with like it's a lick and a promise, like they used to say in the old days. I'm not
Right.
trying to get every single bit of dust away. There might be dust in my house. But I am very list oriented and routine oriented, and I try really hard to be more flexible. And that's been a challenge like my entire life. Like I have
Oh
tried and
wow.
tried. I think I'm getting better at it. But it used to be like if my day went off track early in the day, I couldn't rescue the day. I was like, that was it. The day was just written off. And I think I'm better with it now, getting things back on track and not just going, oh my gosh, what do I do? But I feel like I mean, and a lot of people wrote to me after this book and said, "Oh, but Sam's acting. She's just sort of this perfect person." I'm like, "No, the type A is the problem. The type A is
Right.
the flaw.
That's a big problem, but they don't see
It's
it
the
as a
problem.
problem. I don't think they do.
Exactly.
My
Yes.
mom, she don't. So when you wrote Sam, was that a little bit of you too? Or just people in general that you know are, similar
It,
to Sam?
there were some similarities. Most everything is made up.
Mm-hmm.
Sam moved to her house, which is very different from my house, and Sam is in a different tax bracket than I'm in. But I had a recent move myself in the last
Oh
couple of
wow.
years, and
Mm-hmm.
so that kind of made me start thinking, and I started like hearing all these stories about my local HOA, the homeowner association, and that kind of made me go, oh, this might be a good way for my character to suddenly get involved in the lives of these people in her neighborhood in this murder if she's running for the HOA president. And so that it kind of was a device that I use, but often there are things, and I'm sure you find the same way, that there are things that happen that I twist and turn a little bit and fit into a story to make something work. I mean, I guess it's a plot device. But you have to have things that, because we're writing cozy mystery. So you've got
Right.
this amateur who's going around asking people about murder. Well, that's not very realistic unless you have some kind of a way to do it. You got to have a
That's
vehicle
true.
to make that happen.
That's true. That's very true. It's something you said. I couldn't remember. It just slipped my mind when yeah, we do write tidbits about our life. One of the ladies I follow on Twitter, Annie Acorn. Everybody knows Annie Acorn. She said you can't write unless you live. You got to live in order to write. So that's taking those little experiences, either yours or someone else, or things that you just witnessed and just put it into your writing life. So I can relate to that. I really can. So, Sam is a type A personality. And can you give us a little background on Sam?
Sure.
And she's
Sam was
real. She's
she's
fictional real.
she's she's got a lot going on. She's someone who lived in a metropolitan area. She was in the Charlotte area, and then she and her husband Chad decided to move to the mountains, which actually that's what I did as well. She sold an app, which I did not do. She had a very successful app, and she was able to sell it. And just now, she's got a lot of time on her hands, and I think probably that's driving her a little crazy. And so we see some of that flaw maybe as well, because she is getting into people's business, and she is just kind of doing a lot of external stuff, trying to get on the HOA board and all this sort of thing. That's sort of driving her. She's really a really driven character. And that's propelling her through the book, where another character might just be like, oh, there's a body. I have nothing to do with that. And I'm really sorry I moved to this neighborhood.
Yeah, I noticed that with Sam. She's definitely a go-getter, a leader. That's all a part of the type A personality. You don't sit there and wait for things to come to you. You go to it. There was something about Sam. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember. It's something I wanted to ask you about Sam. Oh, so her flaws, even though she's a type A and people think that she's a perfectionist in a way, and that ideal of being a type A personality is a flaw. And I noticed because she don't know how to relax. She can't
She
take
does not.
naps.
Yes, she can't take a nap. She can't watch a movie. She has a hard time.
Yeah, and then also you have we're not going to go too much into this right now, but I know there's going to be a book too because this is a series, and so her character is going to grow more and develop. So I realized we don't talk much about her family. We just mentioned it a tad bit, so there's something there I know about her family. So I can't wait to figure that one out.
Yes.
And
Yeah. She doesn't have a good relationship with her family.
And I'm curious about the app. You don't touch much about that, but being a tech geek like myself, I was like, oh, what kind of app did she develop? And she got rich off
If I could figure that out, then I would have done it myself. Yeah.
of. So some of her friends, people, not friends, we're gonna talk about them. But she moves to a place called Maple Hills. And can you give us what is so cozy and unique and different about Maple Hills in comparison to your other settings in your previous series? What
I
make it
think,
unique?
yeah, that's a good question. It's similar in some ways to the setting of another series that I have, which is the Southern Quilting series, where it's dappled hills. So
Oh,
a little
okay.
bit similar there, but it's a mountain setting. I think mountain kind of equals cozy sometimes because it's got the chill in the air and there's like warm blankets and you like hot tea or coffee. And it kind of helps to bring that to life a little bit, just the cozy aspect. But I think also with this series, it's a little different because I feel like the neighborhood is more well defined. It's an actual subdivision, which actually I don't think in any of my books I have an actual real life subdivision. It's just kind of people just living on wherever. But this is more close knit. They have events. They have like a picnic they do, and they have like they're trying to have movie nights and things like that. So that gives me more of an opportunity to bring people together and question suspects and things like that. Again, a little bit of a setup to be able to do that realistically.
Oh yeah, because
And I
I
don't
was
know how I
like,
did it with the other series. It was just people at the grocery store. I don't know what I did.
right. 'Cause I was like, ooh, HOH is familiar. It's like my neighborhood or something. And I noticed the diversity of the neighbors too that she
Yes.
meets. So the
Yeah.
first person I really want to talk about is, well, let's go to Chad first.
Okay.
He's a type B. I figure he got to be a type B because he's more laid back. He likes taking naps.
That's
How
right.
do those two connect, in a way? How would a type A and a type B connect? I know they say opposite attracts, but it seemed
Yes.
like he would drive her nuts, but I didn't get that at all.
I think she's the kind of person that if he is kind of sloppy or he doesn't do something she wants him to do, she just does it herself. Like she would rather do that. Maybe she's kind of a control freak. And so maybe she doesn't delegate and it works
Hmm.
because she just does everything, but if
See,
you have,
yeah.
you know,
It's like when you tell your kids to do something, and if they don't do it right, I don't argue with them. I just do it myself because I know I'm going to get it right. Okay, I get that.
and
Yeah,
it makes keeps your blood pressure lower to
that's
do
true.
that. Yeah, instead of
But
having high expectations.
they seem to get along really, really well. They balance each other out for some reason, but they did say opposite attracts too. But I was like, I keep referring back to my mom because we are so opposite of each other. Maybe that's why she's my mom and nothing else than that. So I don't
Yeah.
know. So Nora, she's a resident there. I something about her I liked immediately. Tell us a little bit about her and your thought process and how you develop her. Yeah.
She's kind of a tough lady. She is an older resident in the neighborhood, and she hasn't done a whole lot of things, I think. She likes to know what other people are doing. She's very observant. She's tried to be involved more with the community, like trying to do things with the HOA, and she keeps getting shut down. And that's kind of made this like low level anger kind of boiling up through her, I think, where
Right.
she really, she wants to get her projects through the architectural review or whatever it is. But she's also somebody who likes to maybe gossip and spread. It's very helpful to have a character like that, as you know, with a cozy, somebody who
Right.
knows things, right? And you don't know if she's a reliable witness or not, but she definitely has information. So you've got to the reader and the sleuth have got to kind of figure out if she is reliable or not.
I liked her immediately. It seems like we all have a neighbor like that. I know I did growing up. Miss Johnson,
Yes,
rest her soul, but we had one that knew everybody business. She saw everything, she knew everything, and she would correct you. So that's how I
yes.
saw Nora. So I liked her. And then she was an elder, and I love my elders. And I was able to pick point, but she was a strong character, very strong character in
Yeah,
the
she
book.
was, yeah. She's a funny one. I think it's also since she's been in the neighborhood a long time, she has a little background that maybe other people who moved in more recently might not have
That's
on people. Yeah.
that's true. And then there's Olivia. She tell me about her a little bit without giving any spoilers away.
Yeah, that's a little tough, isn't it? I would say with Olivia, she's in this marriage that's kind of a challenging marriage for her. She's with a really big banking kind of go-getter guy. She's maybe not really happy in her marriage, but she's trying to make things work, and she loves her
Mhm.
husband. She's trying to make things work, but she's having kind of a hard time. He's a difficult person to live with. She and Sam kind of had like a little bit of a, they were like, oh, we see some commonalities or we could be friends. And Olivia's spending a lot of time in her house. She doesn't know a whole lot of people, or she doesn't have really close friends. So that gives Sam an opportunity as well to make a friend. They decide maybe to start doing some volunteering and stuff together, which also gets characters out of the neighborhood and just into the community a little bit too. Because cozies can be really insular, and I like them that way
That's true.
too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fun, but sometimes you have to take them out a little bit of the tiny little community that they're in. Yeah.
That's true. Is she a young character? I took her as a young lady, a younger lady in comparison, maybe around the same age as Sam. Or
Yeah, I think so. Like in the early 30s.
yeah, I figured
Feels
she
very
was.
young to me
I
in my
liked
early
her.
50s.
And then there's a couple, Alfred and Mandy, right? They are a couple,
Yes.
husband and wife team.
Yeah.
Y'all got to read this because I just like how Sam was able to just get in and just do what she needed to do to help this couple out. But I liked them. They was interesting. They surprised me. Tell me about them.
They are a really hardworking couple. They have tough jobs that they sometimes can't get away from. Maybe it's an 8 to 5, 8 to 6. They don't have a lot of job flexibility. And they've had some things like medical bills and stuff that have come up. And you know how that is. You have to make a call during hours, and getting somebody, and then you get the runaround and all of this. And Sam is the kind of person, so she's kind of going door to door, introducing herself, which sounds extremely pushy, but we've already introduced she's this type A character.
Right.
She's just kind of going around going, oh, I'm the new neighbor, interested in being HOA president. Here's what I can help you out with, because there's a lot of local frustration about this homeowner association. And she wants to help Mandy and Alfred out, and so she kind of steps into their lives and tries to do that. And we'll see if that's successful or not.
Right.
Uh, but they seem pretty amenable to having her try to give them some help.
And I like their relationship. They seem to just really keep it going. They like a team, and I really like that. And that's
Yeah, I
something
like that
rare in the
too.
real world, but I like
Yeah,
that with
it's kind of
them.
rare.
And then, you made it more relatable because of the issues that they was going through that we all go through just about. So that was
Yes.
really good. And Sam seemed like someone that you really want to have your back. She's there.
Yeah.
That's the kind of friend, you just have to overlook the type A, but the type A personality would definitely get things done. And I keep referring
Yeah.
to my mom.
Yeah. It's
I need to think of
she
somebody
is.
else a
Yeah.
type A. And then I may be a type A. I'm not really, I'm a type B, but I do like lists and I like everything they have. They are, so I have a little bit of that in me, but I'm not maybe a control freak on my own. I don't know. I don't know. Oh,
It's hard. I mean, I think a lot of us have at least a little bit of
yeah, we
it.
got
I'm gonna
to.
say
Yeah.
I'm probably the only type A person in my family,
Oh,
like my kids and
wow.
my
Okay.
husband and all. I guess there has to be one maybe at every
Right.
extended family. You've got somebody who maybe is like, because I mean, I've got a daughter who's I mean, a grown woman. She's an RN. And I'm like, oh, you don't have time to do that. You've got a shift. I'll take care of that for you. Ridiculous, but that's kind of the way it is. You have,
Yeah.
you want to solve things, you want to fix things, which
Yeah.
is, I think, usually a man's trait, but I think there's
Exactly.
something like that
Yeah.
too.
That's definitely my husband's right, the fix thing. And
Fix it.
then there's George. Ooh, tell us a little
Yeah.
bit, without giving no spoilers away, a little bit about George, the head of the HOA.
Yes, yeah. So George is, I'd say he's definitely a control freak. He probably would even give Sam a run for her money in that kind of personality trait. He is in charge of the HOA, and he's kind of like Dr. No, right? I mean, he wants to tell everybody they can't have their, whatever they want to have done on their house. They don't want, can't have their addition, or their bushes are messed up, or they have grass growing along the cracks of the driveway.
Right.
Um, and he is kind of a controlling figure, even in his own family. He's got some, kind of controlled traits. He's not particularly kind to his son. He causes a lot of trouble. He's kind of just this troublesome person that stirs things up and instigates things, and that's a good character to have if with a cozy mystery, of course, again too, or any
Especially,
kind of
yeah.
mystery.
Someone
Yeah,
that you're going to love to hate or hate to love or something like that.
if
Or a
everybody's a Sunday
sympathizer.
school teacher, then it's kind of hard to get to get a
That's
victim,
true.
or hard to get a killer. Yeah.
And his son is Marcus.
Yes.
I had a question. When Sam was talking to Marcus at the house, and I noticed that his mood changed, or his reaction, when she mentioned she had a husband or when she was married. You think he was crushing on her a little bit, was hoping that she could be a possibility or something?
I think definitely so. I think definitely so. And I think he was trying to move on her again, maybe at the funeral, which was not a very appropriate
Yeah.
time to do that.
I saw that. I thought that was interesting. And he's a surgeon, so yeah. But that was a character you introduced in there. Let me see. I'm trying to remember. Aiden, right? Alden Aiden.
Aiden.
I like
Aiden.
him. Tell me about
Good.
him. I really do. I mean, yeah, I do. I'm hoping there's more of him to come in the future books. Tell us about Aiden.
It's yeah, I think we've got a little bit of Aiden in book two that I'm writing right now. He left the police department. He decided that being in the police wasn't really for him. But he's somebody who knows things about the police and how they work. And that, again, if you don't have a police officer as a friend or a love interest in your cozy mystery, you've got to have some information coming from
Yeah.
somebody. So he's a neighbor, and he does know how the police kind of work, especially in a murder situation. And he's now a teacher. So he left one profession to go to something completely different, and he's working teaching kids and high school kids.
I know, because being a cop or a detective is hard, even in the real
Yeah.
world out here. But I like
Yes.
him, and I sort of sense, I don't know if it was just me, that romantic person, want to sense something between them two in the future. I don't know. Maybe a
There's a
little.
little spark there. Seems
I
like a
thought
spark.
so. Yeah, I really thought so. Let's see who else. Ooh, Arlo. Did I say
Oh
that?
yeah.
The
Yes.
dog. Oh, I fell in love with him.
Oh, I love Arlo too.
Oh,
He's a sweetie. Arlo is a dog that is in a neighbor's yard and in the neighborhood, but he's chained up all the time, which makes everybody very sad and unhappy because, of course, people don't need to be chaining up their dogs.
that's
And
true.
so Sam, she decides she wants to go and rescue the dog, right from this person's front yard, basically. But she has a lot of self confidence. Sometimes that might be misplaced. She can be a little pushy, but she just kind of pushes her way in there and talks to the owner. And was just like, I would like to adopt your dog, and they work something out. But poor Arlo, I mean, he had kind of a rough time, but he snaps back really, really well,
Yeah, he
and
did.
he becomes a part of the characters.
Didn't you just adopt a pet recently too?
Yes, yeah. We've got a kitten we're getting on Saturday,
Oh
actually.
wow.
We usually have three animals,
Mm-hmm.
and or we have for like the last, I guess, 12 years or something
Oh
like that. And we
wow.
lost our Mr. Smoke earlier in the year, and
Oh,
so we're
my
about to get back
condolence.
up to our quota of three. And we've got Maisie, who is a rescue actually,
I
and
remember you mentioned her.
yes,
Yeah.
she's a pistol. She's running around in there, and she keeps scratching her claws on a scratching post right next to me. So if you hear any strange sounds, that's Maisie.
I like Arlo. He and I paid attention to him. So readers, pay attention to Arlo in there. Maybe some clues with him. Who else did we have? Let me see. Julie, right? Julie,
Yes, yeah. Or Julia, I can't remember if
Julia.
it's one.
Yeah, she's a Type A personality too, right? Her and Sam clicked.
Yes, yeah, they did. They understand each other. I think you can recognize that real quick in another person,
Mm-hmm.
somebody
Yeah.
similar to you that way. She had some run-ins with George, and because they were both on a park regeneration kind of project, basically
Mm-hmm.
park beautification, take an old park and bring in some new elements, gussy it up, make it better. And she was on the design committee and he was more on like the management end of things, and they just butted heads the whole time. So she's not real happy with him, and she's one of those people also who've had problems with the HOA. So there's lots of people not happy with that particular
Right.
organization.
There's a lot of people in my area don't like it either. And
Yeah,
one more character I want to talk about. Make sure I get her name right. Pris.
that's right.
Oh, okay.
Chris. Yeah.
See, when I first read Pris, I assumed that she was an introvert. So just
Yes.
tell me, just without spoilers, a little bit about Pris.
About Chris. Again, what can I say about Pris? She is somebody who is sort of a woman of mystery in the neighborhood. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
she doesn't show up to events. We have these picnics and we have these different things, and she doesn't come. And we never really see her. She's not out walking or talking to neighbors at the fence or anything like that. She's not working on a vegetable garden in her yard. They're like, we just don't know anything about this person. And Sam, being Sam, she was wondering if something might be wrong. And so she kind of was wanting to take Pris under her wing a little bit, and maybe pull her out into, the society a little bit, into the
Right.
neighborhood, and see how that works out. But she's in there kind of like everybody's like, what's going on with this woman? So people aren't sure what to think of her. And usually if people aren't sure what to make of you in a neighborhood, that can be kind of bad news.
Yeah, that's true. So we have two Nicks out there in the audience, and Nick Sturgeon say he loved that you include pets in your story. So talking about Arlo, Nick, you gonna love you some Arlo, and the other Nick say hello, hello. So I had oh, before we move on to the questions, so in your opinion, as a writer, would you what's the amount of characters you have should have, or does it depend on the story? What's the range per cozy that you think should be the sweet
Yeah,
spot for
that's kind of
characters?
tough. Yeah, you don't want it to be confusing, but
Hmm.
you don't want to have the reader guess who the murderer is too easily. So in my books, I think I almost always have five suspects, and then one of them ends up being killed in the middle of the book. Usually, the one that looks most likely to have done it is usually the one who's the second
Oh,
victim in
okay.
my stories. And then I've got a handful of recurring characters. I'm going to say four or five of those who make regular appearances. And then you've got your sleuth. I like to have a sidekick so that way the sleuth's just not ruminating all the time in her own
Right.
head. So I have a sidekick. I mean, we're kind of inching up there. What is this? Something around maybe 12 characters that are core
Okay.
characters to the books, which always makes me a little nervous. So I try to reintroduce characters when they've been off screen, so to speak, for a
Hmm.
while, and be like, this is who this is, and this is why they're important. Just kind of that way the reader doesn't get confused. Because I know as a reader, if I open a book and I see a cast of characters and it's got like 25 names on there and it's got a
Wow.
map and it's got all this stuff, I'm like, oh no, I don't have time for this. I'm not going to be able to. I can't figure this out. This is hard. So I try to make it easy, because especially with a cozy, I feel like it should just be pleasurable and not. I mean, it's complicated enough without
Yeah.
just wondering who these characters are. You know.
And then as you introduce them, they become like a friend or your neighbor yourself. So it's like, okay, what Pris doing? Where is she? Where's Julia?
Yeah.
So that you did good with this one. I enjoyed it. It was
Thanks.
just right. It was just like the little circular neighborhood, you know. So we
Mhm.
had some questions sent in. I asked people to send me whatever questions they had to ask you. And Nick, he's a part of I wrote down the name of, the Gents Book Club there in Canada. So let me read the first one. This one is from someone named Shelley. I'm not sure if Shelley's a part of the book club. She said, as a reader, I'm curious about your writing process when it comes to developing your characters, plots, and twists. Do you plan who your suspects are before you begin writing your book, or you reveal them, or do they reveal themselves as the story unfolds? We're gonna stop at that one right now. Yeah.
Yeah, good question. I have done it both ways, but I started getting into trouble after, I'm gonna say maybe it was 5 books in when I was starting out. I would get into it and just start developing suspects as I went, and it was just kind of a very organic process. But then
Oh,
I
okay.
ran into all these plot holes and problems. So I started outlining then. I came up
Mm-hmm.
with the victim first. The victim is always where I start. And who I think of like 5 people who might want this person dead for any reason, or maybe I'll brainstorm and see how many people I can think of that would want this person dead, and then pick the top 5
Right.
out of that. And then I plot from there. And it was one of those things that used to be maybe 10 or 12 pages, the outline. It's now like 40 or 50 pages.
Oh,
It takes
wow.
me,
That's a
I know,
lot.
it's crazy. It takes me a couple of weeks to write it, but then, as you know, it takes me hardly any time to write the book. I mean, because I
Right.
just wake up, I look and see what my outline says for me to do that day, and then I go off
Mm-hmm.
the outline. And a book writes itself. I mean, lately it's been like 5 or 6 weeks, but that's just the writing of the book, not the 2 weeks on the outline and the editing and all the stuff that comes after that. But it really does help, and it keeps the story. I feel like it makes the story a little bit more complex or well thought out, on
Mm-hmm.
my end anyway, because apparently I wasn't really good at being a pantser, because
Oh,
I
okay.
would confuse myself or
Right.
whatever. So yeah, I'm better with an outline. How
So
about
that
you, Tish? You're
I
doing outline,
learned
don't you?
I
Yeah.
wrote by the seat of my pants with that first one,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
going through the developmental edits, and I realized, oh my gosh, next time I'm gonna have an outline, a very extensive outline, because you really need one. You know, it's like a roadmap. You can catch all these little plot holes and things that you miss. So I learned my writing process through this first one. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do the 40 page or anything like that, because I still like
It's
things real simple and basic, and the
yeah.
bullet points. So we'll see. I definitely will have an outline. She followed up with a question. She said, let's see, oh, she wants to know, have any of your characters or plots surprised you in the end?
Yes, I will go off of outline. I do allow myself to do that, and because sometimes I'll have a better idea. I'll be like, "Oh, you know what? I think it is too obvious." Even with an outline, I'll be like, I think I'm pointing too many clues at this person." So if I pick somebody else and they can all equally have done it,
Hmm.
then it'll be more of a surprise. And then I just mark my outline that I did make a change and that was different, because sometimes I'll do book clubs or whatever online. It'll be like 7 years later since I wrote the book, and I'll have to go back to the outline and really read it because I won't remember the book. I mean, after 60 plus books, you just don't remember anymore. So if I have the outline saying the wrong thing, then that's bad. So I have to correct the outline and be like, I changed the killer.
What about your time and the dates? Because that's something I had an issue with. I had to go back and do a chart on what day this happened, mainly not the time, but the date, because I didn't have any dates. I was like, oh, well, if it started on a Saturday, this couldn't have happened on this particular day. So I had to go back and figure out, okay, give everything a date. Do you do that?
Yes, I mean, I did that for years until I
Oh,
suddenly wised up and I'm like, I have this outline. Why am I not putting the days of the week
oh,
on the outline? Which I wasn't until last year. And that saved so many problems
oh,
because on
wow.
one of my beta readers had been like, you had like three suspect interviews, somebody going to church, and a restaurant visit all on one day. They're like, how did that happen? I'm like, that's too much. That's too much on
Right.
one day, you know? So then I'd have to like fix the whole book and the timeline. But it took me, I don't know, 15 years or something to figure out I needed to have it on my outline. So yeah, that saves a lot of time. A
Okay,
lot of time.
that I'm taking that tidbit because
Yeah.
that will. I mean, I had to go back over and over several times, and then I got confused. I'm like, this ain't right. Nick has a question. He said, "When starting a new cozy series, do you find yourself writing about communities you have lived in and adjusting to adapt to the identity of the location, or your places crafted from scratch?"
That's a good question. So I have kind of done both. I have Bradley, North Carolina is a made up town in my Myrtle Clover series, but it is very similar to Anderson, South Carolina, which is where I grew
Mm.
up. So by doing that, I know where everything is. I know there's a duck pond. I know what the downtown looks like. I know the way that everything is laid out. So I can mentally, because I'm one of those people who, I mean, even if I look at a map, it's not going to mean anything to me. I'm not real good with a map.
Me neither.
But if I have a mental, note of where everything is, then I can keep track of it and not make mistakes. I did write the Memphis barbecue series. It was a writer for hire deal with Penguin, and they wanted it set in Memphis.
Mhm.
So I had to go to Memphis because this was
Oh.
before the internet got really good and there wasn't really Google Street View, which they have now.
Mhm.
So I could see, and I was like, oh, they don't allow, people to drive on Beale Street. I had no idea. So I had to kind of do a lot of research for that because, like Nick says, I mean, I want it to embody, the actual city. I don't want to screw anything up or have anybody in Memphis be upset with me for the way I portrayed anything. So I did a lot of work for that, but it's definitely easier to use a place I'm familiar with, base it on that, and then kind of make this setting work with the characters and the theme of the books. So Myrtle gets bored in this small town and she starts stirring things up. She's going to cause insurrection at the retirement home and just do all this stuff. She doesn't want to play bingo and bridge anymore. And so it's kind of like, okay, that's kind of the trigger for making this situation happen. So yeah, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about it like
I
that.
like that. That's what I do because I know people will fact check you quick if you don't get a location right. And I met this author the other day who says that she don't give specifics, but just give a general area because she knows how people fact check. And I just created me a little southern town, made it easy for me.
You did a very good job. I like
Thank you.
the Southern town.
The other Nick said, okay, let's see. He said, as far as your characters, do you draw inspiration from people in your real life situation? He said he's also curious, how did you come up with the names and personalities? Any specific process?
I do. I think I've used a different process over the years because starting out, I would create a character who is kind of almost like a Frankenstein monster of a lot of different people that I knew. You know what I
That's a
mean?
good one. Yeah, I like that.
Like a little bit of that person and a little bit of this person, and mix it all together and come up with somebody completely different. Because I've always been very sensitive to not wanting to copy somebody exactly because I don't want to get in any trouble or I don't want to make anybody in my family upset with me or anything like that. So I try to make it so nobody is very similar to anybody else, but they may have traits. And I take people's names like all the time because you can't have enough names. You just really
Right.
can't. So
I I look at
yeah,
street signs. That's how I come up with my name. Like for my town, I was taking my kid to school and I was like, oh, I like that name. I'm gonna use that. So
good
and when
idea.
we yeah, and then Texas have all these little bitty tiny towns that you go through when you're trying to get from point A to point B. And I just take some of those names and sometime mix them. So that's how I come up with at least street names and towns names. And I love people's names. I love the
Um,
weirdest of weirdest people's names. I do.
yes. Well, especially in the South, there's a lot of weird names. I've got a lot of, I think that Nick was asking about that as well. And I went and pulled out, we've got like a family tree that goes back a really long time. And there's just some really horrible old names on there. Like you would never name some poor baby
Wow.
those names anymore. But, they're just old, especially Southern names. I'll be like, oh my gosh, this is just terrible. But, it's the way that it was. And it's kind of interesting to stick those in. And then I'll have people write me go, that was my grandmother's name, and I'll be like,
Right.
yeah, you know, funny.
Nick said, "How do you feel when a reader interprets a character personality different from what you intended?" In reference to Pris.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah,
one.
that's a good one to ask about. Because Priss has a little bit more depth than we originally think. So I
Right.
think I think the writers sometimes, like, I know I was maybe a little deceptive some in how I present characters at the beginning, because there may be something else to them that the
Hmm.
reader and the sleuth have got to figure out. So I definitely want readers to think characters are a certain way. It's interesting. Sometimes people haven't thought, like I said, they were had different thoughts about Sam, which I got. I was like, no, Sam is, like I said, she's not perfect. And some people who were writing me were like, oh, well, she's just perfect. No, no, she's really not. She's really messed up. She's got a lot of issues, really, which we'll explore some of those in other books. But yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, I find it interesting. I like to hear readers' reactions to characters because it inspires me to develop those characters more in another book. Because like your book, you can do a spin-off of a character and have the story focus on them next time. They're not the sleuth, but maybe they're the ones whose cousin got murdered, or
Right.
somebody. So it makes it easy to kind of pick up with that and develop them more and show other aspects of their personality in other books. It makes, especially when you're writing a series, you kind of need that.
You do.
Yeah.
I thought with Sam because I always look at she was so good at the type A personality, and I always say, sometimes people may be overcompensating for something else that's going on in their lives. So that's how I looked at her. And with
Yes.
Pris, when I first read her, I just seen it was this character in what was that? I don't know if it was 16 Candles or something. I can't. The Breakfast Club,
Oh, I know
and
what
she
you're talking about.
she
Yeah, the one with the
reminded me.
black hair, the
Yeah,
hoodie and stuff.
that's how I seen Pris. Yeah,
Yes.
that's my interpretation of her when I see her.
Yeah, I
Nick
think he was
said
like that.
he said thanks, Elizabeth. There's really helpful responses about the setting. I will definitely get myself one if this is a series. Yes, Nick, this is the first of her series. This here book right here. Make sure you can see it. The Type A Guide to Solving Murder. So yeah, this is a new series too. So you get to join us on this new one.
Thanks.
So Rusty, he's from the book club. He said, let me see, it's long. I'm going to break it up into segments. He said, I found the ending of your book so unexpected. It reminded me of an Agatha Christie mystery. How do you
Well,
know
thanks.
when you left enough clues for the readers to follow without giving too much away? That's a compliment. The Agatha
That is a
Christie,
huge
that
compliment.
is.
She's, I mean, I grew up reading her books, loved her books. So thank you, Rusty. I appreciate that. I think with this particular ending, I had outlined my clues going in, and then when I got to writing that scene, I was like, I need to go back in and I need to beef them up a little bit, because I was like, I want this to be totally fair, because it has to be. It has to be
Right.
fair. The readers are like, they're like your sleuth, your sidekick. They're solving
Yeah,
the case. It's interactive almost.
it is.
So if you're not giving them the clues, I mean, it's not fair. So I went through, but I also tried to make it so when I put a clue, I laid a clue, then I distracted from that clue and made something else that seems like maybe it's more important happen, or a conversation that seems more important. So it's kind of like pushes the clue to the back of the reader's mind, hopefully. So far, everybody seems to have been surprised by the ending. I don't think I've heard of anybody who hasn't. But yeah, it surprised me. The ending was, I mean, that was the first thing that came up with me. So
It surprised me
hopefully that will be
too.
the case.
It
Yeah.
made me more observant, because my husband said I never pay attention to anything, but it made me, I mean, I didn't see it coming either. I was shocked.
Mhm.
And then I
Good.
started going back and I was like, oh, I started putting the little tidbits together that you did throw out enough clues, but you just have to be observant and aware of it. Like I have to go back to Arlo. He was a big clue, but I try to
Yeah,
brush him off as a reason why he responded a certain way. But pets are very sensitive to people. They know people.
they
That's
are.
much I can say.
That's for sure.
He said, I think you probably answered that. Is there a balance you aim between guiding readers and keeping them in suspense? He said, I love to hear how you decided if you left enough hint for them to figure out the culprit versus when it's too difficult to piece together. And he said, by the way, I enjoyed this mystery a lot.
Oh, thank you. That is awesome. Yeah, I mean, this isn't the only book where I felt like I needed to go back in after I mean, yeah, I followed my outline and I put in the clues at the places where I had outlined. And then I got to the end and I was like, is this, I couldn't tell. Sometimes my beta readers will really help me out there,
Hmm.
and I'll be like, is this, did you solve it? I had an agent for a while, and everything I gave her, she would be like, "Oh yeah, I figured that one out." I'm like, "Do you read a lot of mysteries, or you, just, you just messing with me?" So for a while there, we had this kind of friendly thing where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've got to try to have my agent not know, who the killer is." But I wanted still, again, you still have to make it fair. So there was
Right.
one of my village library mysteries. There was one that was also a big surprise ending, and I was like, okay, I wanted to beef up the person's presence in the book because I felt like there weren't enough scenes with this particular person in them because she wasn't viewed as a suspect. And I was like, that's not really fair if she doesn't have enough scenes,
Hmm.
so I added some scenes with her in there where she's just kind of being, just not somebody who's really seeming like a danger or anything. She's just not really in the background, but she's just doing something normal, interacting with my sleuth or whatever. So that's another way to do it, is just to make sure that you've got enough scenes with your actual killer, your murderer at
Right.
the end. Yeah.
And you really did. We just had to pick up on those clues. We really did. So I was going to ask you. So, for those who don't know about what a cozy mystery is, could you tell us in your own words, your feeling, your heart, the essence of a cozy mystery?
Absolutely. So a cozy mystery to me is when you have again, another closed environment, right? This can be a small town, it can be a coffee shop. There's a lot of just really, or it can be a bigger place. Like I had Memphis, but I had a barbecue restaurant where everything was kind of centered around that. The actual crime happens off screen, off stage, so to speak. There's not a lot of blood and gore. There's no real forensics to follow, and it's a puzzle mystery. So you have all the evidence, and it should be, like I said, completely interactive, where you can solve it alongside the sleuth. So there shouldn't be any moments where the sleuth is like, aha, okay, now I know, and then the
Right.
reader's like, wait, how do you know? You have to be able to present everything at one time. And that's, to me, it also has kind of a cozy vibe to it, where you're reading it and you know that it's going to be okay in the end. So it's very cathartic. You have this perfect place wherever it is, and then something bad happens, and then it's all cleaned up, it's all tidied up at the end, and you have this wonderful sense of completion at the end of the story. And there's also a lot of friendships, as you know. There's in the writing these stories, you're focusing on the quirky characters and their friendships with each other. And I think that's really kind of what makes a cozy. That was a rambling answer, but
Oh,
hopefully
it was a
that.
good answer. I just love cozy. That's why I love cozy so much. It is
Yeah,
very
me too.
cozy. And you get a happy ending. The justice is usually served. So I love that.
Yeah, me
So,
too.
what are your oh, one unorthodox question? Which one of your characters eat pizza with pineapple?
Oh, which one would eat pizza with pineapple? I'm going to say Myrtle might do that. Myrtle is just
I like Myrtle. I love Myrtle.
considering Myrtle has also she's not much. I don't know if Myrtle's taste buds actually even work, to be frank, because
Oh.
she's a terrible cook. I like pizza with pineapples. That's one of my favorite types, of pizza is to have veggies and pineapple. But probably Myrtle. I'm going to say Myrtle.
I love Myrtle. Y'all need to read those series. Be sure to look at elizabethspanncraig.com, right?
That's
Your
it.
website. And it's in the
Thank
description. Click on the website and check out all her books out there. So, what's next? Can you tell us what's next from this series?
from this
Within this
series.
series, within the series. Yeah.
Yes, yes. For the Type A series, I have got a book, Type A Guide to Dinner Parties, which I think I'm
Ooh.
going to be done with at the end of the month, but I might wait and release it until January. I'm not really sure. So Sam decides to have a dinner party because her life has been a little crazy, and she decides she needs to kind of have a little bit of normalcy. And, as things happen with Sam, there just happens to be a mysterious death right there
Oh,
at her dinner
wow.
party. So that's the next in this series.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to getting it. So I want
Thanks.
to thank you so much. This has been really fun getting to know the new series, starting a new series off with you. I felt like it took me forever to try to catch up on the other series, but I love starting off on a new series, and I got lucky. I actually can follow you all the way through with this one.
Thanks so much, Tish. Yeah, I enjoy that too. I like picking up on a series right when it's new.
So I just want to thank you for being here today, and we're gonna end our quirks, clues, and coffee on this note. And we hope you join us again with the next book in this series and whatever other series. Be a regular here with us.
Well, thanks so much. I loved it. Always love talking to you, and thanks so much for having me today.
You are so welcome. So, y'all, until next time, happy writing and happy reading. Thank you for being here.
Bye bye.